Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, JustusRStone, here with my thoughts on volume number 5 of Fujino Omori's light novel series, Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? So in this volume, Belle, Welf, and Lily make their way for the first time to the middle levels of the dungeon. Unfortunately, while they're there, they get sort of caught up in the flight of another group of adventurers who have a massive group of monsters chasing after them. And as those adventurers escape, Belle and company find themselves now trapped with all of these monsters surrounding them, and they end up being trapped in the dungeon. Hestia, when Belle does not return home, organizes a quest and a group of adventurers to go down into the dungeon and to rescue Belle and his friends. Now, the first thing that really sets this volume apart from the other 4 volumes in the series is that the dungeon plays a major role in this one. And the dungeon is where at least 95% of this volume takes place. Now, in volumes 1 through 4, the dungeon, yeah, okay, it's the reason that the city exists. It's the reason that Belle's becoming an adventurer. Like, it is a reason for a lot of things, but we really don't spend a lot of time in the dungeon when you take a look at it as a percentage of the actual story. The vast majority of the stories take place with Belle in the city, take place with him associating with not a lot of other adventurers, mostly with people in the city itself. And the other thing that I enjoyed about this volume was that it wasn't the main sort of conflict wasn't just because of the machinations of a jealous or spiteful god or goddess like we've had in some of the other volumes. This volume is very much about dungeon crawling adventure. It is fast-paced, there's a lot of action. Even the writing style that Omori uses in this volume, I'd say, is a little bit different. When he's talking about sort of the sense of panic and chaos and everything else, he uses these shorter sentences and smaller paragraphs and just sort of rapid fires little events that are coming out just to sort of play with you so that you sort of can be in the mindset of these characters as they feel this sort of, you know, what's that? It really is effective and it's really entertaining. It helps the pacing a ton. It's also very different in terms of its feel because we've seen the city. We sort of have an idea of what the city is. But as new levels of the dungeon open up, there are new things to experience, new places to explore. And there's one particular very expansive area in the dungeon that we spend time in this one, which I thought was very cool the way that it was written, and it was very vivid in terms of the descriptions, and it was fun to sort of visit somewhere and spend time somewhere that was completely new to the series. Another aspect of this book that I really enjoyed was that some of these more sideline characters had much more time to shine. So Liu, Lyu, one of the waitresses from the bar that Belle frequents, we knew that she was in the past an adventurer, but we didn't know why she gave it up. We didn't know what her backstory was. Well, she features very prominently in this book, and we find out a lot more about her. And also, even Hestia, the goddess that Belle is part of her familia, we really haven't seen her be very goddess-like. She's been much more like the doting little girl in love or the bumbling girl and stuff like that. Even she gets moments in this that sort of she really shines, and you see that goddesshood of her come through. And it really, I think, helped elevate my opinion of her as a character and made her character a lot more interesting. The other thing about this book that I felt was kind of interesting in terms of the series overall is that it felt like the end of an arc. See, when you read the series so far, book 3, the end of book 3 definitely feels like the end of an arc because we have Belle leveling up and it's sort of like this next step is coming up kind of thing. So it feels like an arc. But with this one, it was a very different thing. As I said, in the previous 4 volumes, we spend most of the time in the city. Belle's interactions are mostly with people who are not adventurers. In this one, because he's in the dungeon, it is spent almost with nothing but adventurers. We see how adventurers are in the dungeon. We get a lot more about how their culture and tactics work, and about how they sort of approach the dungeon and see the dungeon. And we get sort of the good, bad, and ugly of adventurers and adventure culture. And by the end of this book, it feels to me like the end of an arc, because Bell has seemed very separate from adventurers. The fact that he leveled up so quickly, the fact that the vast majority of his allies aren't really adventurers, but are the gods, the goddesses, barmaids, smiths and so forth, and the guild masters. And it really feels like this time he becomes part of the adventurers, that he becomes part of that collective group, and he's not as much of an outsider as he used to be through the other volumes. And it's a very, very different feeling in this book because of that. Because it isn't just Bell fighting his battles all by himself. Because he's surrounded by other adventurers, it changes the tone, it changes even his attitudes and his behavior. It makes the book very interesting and a lot of fun, and it feels fresh when we're coming into now the 5th book in the series. It's cool that we can see, just even with a minor little adjustment in terms of how the story is told, it can make this series a lot of fun and feel very different and very fresh from what we've read in the previous 4 volumes. So those are my thoughts on volume number 5 of Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? Again, another really strong entry in this series. I really enjoy this series. I don't know. I mean, it just feels like it is got a lot of legs underneath it. And I guess what I haven't really said is that this one, there are quite a few little tidbits sort of thrown in to give you an idea of where this story is going to go. And I think it's really going to be cool. At least I, fingers crossed, hope so. So my next review, Canada Post be willing, will be on ReZero, Starting Life in Another World, as long as the book gets delivered in time for me to read it and to do my review. Now, failing that, I will review volume number 3 of Black Bullet. If ReZero gets here in time, this will be what I do after ReZero. I hope you'll join me for that one. If you're brand new to the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe. You can also check out my older light novel reviews, manga reviews, and I don't just read books, I like to write them too. You can check out those links as well. Thank you so much for watching the video. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Until then, bye-bye for now.